of the treatment do have some social obligation to try and help the more challenging parts of the world.
Don't make them annoyed. Don't make them annoyed.
I support that industry should have social responsibility, but for us also we should think of sustainability.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the industry will not support us forever and ever. So as a country, we need also to know that we have to have strategies of sustaining this assistance. It's an assistance. These patients would require to be on medicines for a very long time. We don't know how long this assistance is going to be for. So we should work on mechanisms of sustaining this.
When you say we, the government,
We, the
because there is a
government.
responsibility
We,
of the government, isn't it?
I'm
Yes.
talking here like we, the government.
Yes, John.
The government, of course, has to be strong in its dealings with the pharmaceutical company, because pharmaceutical companies are primarily run by businessmen, not by philanthropists. But if you take the British example, the English example, we have an organization that is prepared to take on the pharmaceutical companies in terms of saying, we want your drug, we will pay for your drug, but we will not pay the cost of the drug that you demand. We wish you to cut the price of the drug before we will approve its use in England. And that is moderately effective in England, whereby a strong government agency can demand that the price of that drug for a particular country, in this case England, can be reduced to something more reasonable, and in some cases that it should be made free of charge.
But in this case, it is free of charge already. So what we need is the diagnostics part.
Yes, no, but as
Right.
Twalib said, Pat, that sustainability is important. It is now free, but for how long?
Yes.
For the rest of our lives? You see?
Well, it's possible that the drug company could make a deal with government saying, we've provided free of charge for 5 years, now we want you to pay 10% of the charge we're charging the United States or Canada, and that may be reasonable.
So, Patricia, if I could ask you, for the program which Novartis is supporting, the GPAP program, how sustainable is that?
Well, it has been in place for 10 years.
Okay.
And there are no
So
signs
there are-
of them pulling out.
Right. So there are patients who've been on the program for 10 years and they've had no difficulties in
No
getting
difficulties.
their medication.
I think for us, the issue right now as patient advocates is that Gleevec is not the only drug available for CML, right? So now there's new drugs made by other companies. So now we have to figure out how a patient in Tanzania could have access to any drug that they needed, not only Gleevec. If they need it. And so how do we approach these companies? And I think that that's what John was saying, that we need a strong government that can approach the companies to negotiate how to bring these medicines to the patients.
That's the challenge for Twalib Ngoma.
How about the issue for generics? Because when new drugs come in, they're branded and the prices are very high. But when you have the patent expired, then you have this same drug in a generic form, and the cost is like 10% of what it was.
Or even less.
Or even less. So we are looking forward to that time.
Yes.
Look at the example of very expensive drugs which now are made by other.
No, I was thinking, there of HIV, because they've got these generics, which are made in Brazil, India, which when they come to places like Tanzania, they are affordable.
Exactly.
And government can afford to give them for free. Are there any moves in making that, in the case of these TKIs and other medicines which you have, or treatments which you've mentioned here?
Well, absolutely. There are generic versions of the commonest TKI of imatinib, generic versions now being made routinely in India and probably in other countries too. And it really relates to how a government will approach the problem of generics coming into their own country. A government could say the generic is going to be loaded with an extra charge, but the sensible thing is that the generic should cause the price of those drugs to drop substantially.
I cannot, speak for Dr. Hussein Mwinyi, who will come next. Would you advise him to go for generics? They are okay, they will do the job with that original TKI is doing?
I think it's inevitable that countries will take on the generics, and the price of the drug from the established pharmaceutical companies will plummet. I think generics have an important role in keeping the market vibrant.
But this is once the patent expires for
yes.
Quebec. Because what is in the market now, which is the copies that are made in India?
So I wanted to qualify
right?
that because what John was alluding to, for example, in India at the present time, there are 19 known varieties which are copies of the original TKI, the original imatinib mesylate. You know? So the problem we have as physicians is that none of those 19 have passed through the normal testing process and so on. So simply because they're available and they have similarities, but they also have some dissimilarities to the original product, we feel uncomfortable in applying the results of the clinical trials which are focused on the original TKI. Now, it's important to note that the patent life of the original TKI, imatinib, is going to expire probably in the next 18 to 24 months. Okay? So then the original TKI will be available, which the physician would not have any difficulties in understanding the safety and efficacy. The problem which we are now facing in CML is because the progress in trying to improve the treatment from the initial lessons learned from imatinib have been so fast, okay, that we now already have the second generation TKIs in the market, third generation TKIs, and there's already a fourth generation which are in the early stages of being tested.
Does that reduce the number of days of sufferings?
These are the primary objective is to improve on the results of imatinib. Okay, so to try and achieve a longer lasting remission, perhaps a deeper remission, which may translate to a potential cure for these patients.
Longer in shorter time.
In total time.
Yeah.
I think also is the fact that if imatinib fails, then there is another drug that you can use. In layman's language, you think this is a more powerful drug than the one that has failed. So we call it second line.
Yeah, okay.
But the target, I think, just to recapitulate what Dr. Mughal has been saying, the target must be to cure this disease, which means that people can take the drug for a finite period, stop it, and the disease never comes back. And that's achievable in some other forms of leukemia, acute leukemia, that you can actually treat a patient and then stop the treatment, stop drugs, stop the treatment, and the disease doesn't come back. So curing CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, must be our target, and in theory must be achievable.
Yeah. Let me, if I may, take you back now to the conference which you held on the 12th and the 13th. On the 12th, according to a program, Dr. Hussein Mwinyi, the Minister for Health and Social Welfare, has opened your conference. What are the salient points that he made at the conference?
Maybe Dr. Ngoma, you want
Yeah,
to?
Ngoma?
No, well, Tariq, you volunteered.
So on the first day, the primary focus was on the healthcare professionals. So we were focusing on the physicians.
No. I want to know what did the minister said. Okay, then Tariq Mughal.
I think
well done, Pat.
the minister started by appreciating the fact that this conference was hosted here, and also he tried to talk about the magnitude of the problem here, the challenges that we are facing, and said that we have one big challenge, that is diagnosing CML. And he finished his talk by asking whether anything could be done so that this country could be able to do the diagnosis locally here.
So which means then if you go to him after this conference, after this program, then he might go along with our suggestion, won't he?
Literally, you would say he might go along, but again, knowing how tight our budgets are, the willingness to do things is there. But when you start to look at where to put your budget, that's when you find that you cannot do most of the things. The priorities, we know them, but there are too many priorities.
But you also alluded to the value of getting neighboring countries together to discuss a common problem in a collaborative sense.
Yes, and it must
Which
be
is
easy
a
with the East
positive
African
way
community.
forward.
Now it's got to 5 countries, which is quite a big voice.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go back to the
And
dedication of the day. Oh,
if
you
I
want
may,
to...
If I may add, because all of this increases the awareness of the leukemia in Tanzania as well. So if the minister had not given much thought for patients with chronic myeloid leukemia because it's such a rare disease, he would have left the colloquium yesterday with the enhanced awareness, enhanced enthusiasm, we hope.
Why was the conference held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, anyway?
I actually took the initiative to organize this in Tanzania. Actually, my first intention was not to do it in Dar es Salaam, but to do it in Tanga.
Why? Because of your mother?
Because of my mother, and I was born in Tanga. And although I'd been away from Tanzania for the last 38 years, it was like a homecoming. So I, on behalf of Alpine, and went to Pat and John, we all agreed, and then we made the collaboration with Professor Ngoma to do it in Dar es Salaam. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go back to first day. What did you do on the first day, the 12th?
Yeah, so on the first day, the primary objective was to provide an educational forum for the healthcare professionals, which range from the physicians, which were hematologists, oncologists, internal medicine physicians interested in oncology, medical students, nurses, and pharmacists. You know? And between the different faculty members, which comprised of course, led by John Goldman and myself, and then we had 2 other international speakers, and then we had a collection of senior speakers from other parts of Africa, and of course we had the privilege of having Professor Ngoma and other key people from Ocean Road Cancer Institute.
Where did these professionals come from?
The other professionals came from different parts of Africa.
Such as?
Yeah, ranging from Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa,
Sudan,
Uganda, Kenya,
Nigeria.
Congo.
So you covered almost the entire...
Kenya.
Ethiopia.
Yes, you covered the entire continent.
Tunisia.
Yeah.
Pretty well, yes.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
That was the attractiveness to me. I was fascinated by the ability to import to Dar es Salaam people from all over Africa.
Africa, yeah.
Possibly less the north coast of Africa. They were less. They have their own organization in the north coast of Africa. But this was the whole of sub-Saharan Africa was represented in a most impressive manner, I thought.
Did their experiences vary too much, or there were similarities?
I think there are some common similarities, and of course there are differences too. And so you can divide them according to the different stages of the diagnosis and treatment. There was a common theme that people were struggling to confirm the diagnosis of CML. Okay? Now, in some countries like Ethiopia and Nigeria, they already have the technology required to do the molecular testing in the country, and some of this technology has been facilitated by efforts of Max and other organizations. So it was interesting to learn from their lessons of doing this kind of technology on site. And then, of course, there were the frustrations from places like Tanzania, where the blood samples and the marrow sample have to be shipped to places like South Africa for analysis, and the patients have to wait, the physician has to be frustrated, and so on and so on.
Why do you send them to these places? Because you don't have the equipment or the capability, the manpower to do it?
Because you don't have the equipment.
Yeah. And are we getting them, madam?
Well, I always think, sometimes I think, what do I do to help? So I don't have the money to buy equipment for everyone. I'm not a doctor. I think my job is to find any person that I possibly think can help and tell them about what's happening and tell them about the dedication of the physicians, to tell them about the generosity of the company and say, there's many corporations, there's many people that want to help and have the funds. And so what we need is to get to them and inspire them to help, because it's not that much money that we need to solve a very big problem that we have here. So that's my job every day.
John?
You don't see very much progress in what Pat talks about on a month-to-month basis. But if you look over 2 or 3 years, you are actually impressed by what has been achieved. And further than that, the idea that benefactors in general and pharmaceutical companies in particular do have this social responsibility to less wealthy countries is very important to propagate further.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've figured out is that there is some crossover of this technology. So sometimes the people that work in TB or the people that work in HIV, they have technology that we can use. But what's been a little bit hard is to get those very separate fields of medicine, people to work together. Right?
There is a major program here, programs really for both the TB and HIV.
Yes.
Do you think those people have got the machinery which you can use, as Pat is suggesting now?
You know, those are vertical programs. They may have the machines, but those programs are not integrated into the existing health service. So you would have somebody having the machine, but they would say this is for the program. And they use it for that program.
Supposing you have an additional let's say cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor like you, madam. Do you think it will work? Can that machine now do, double work, duo?
It can, because if you have the cartridge for CML diagnosis, you can use the same machine that they use for TB. But if that machine is designated for TB, you would need to negotiate with them, because even for the TB work, maybe the machine is not adequate.
I think
the funding that brought that machine was for TB, and when people fund their projects, they want you to use that for that project.
Yeah, so the key thing, and I think this is a very important point, and you may not be a physician, but you have a good understanding of it, is the adaptability of these machines. Okay, so most of these machines, for example, what we're talking about, they are based on looking at the RNA component of our cells, and the machines are PCR machines, and what we're referring to as cartridge is the probe. Okay, so it is possible to have a probe which can be interchangeable, but you've got to have a team who understands how to adapt the different probes, and you can run into problems with quality controls and so on.
Will Alpine, provide such a team or people to train the team?
Well, I think this is one of the efforts we're trying to do. When I alluded to the educational efforts, so the educational efforts directed to the healthcare professional includes this particular aspect.
And the International CML Foundation has been doing great work in training of physicians.
Yes,
maybe you can.
The team consists obviously of senior personnel, senior faculty personnel, and junior people who are specialize in the technical aspect of operating the particular piece of equipment. Now, such people can be offered travel to Tanzania or another country, and the International CML Foundation does have funds to pay for such travel, to support travel of the team to a particular country, or of people from that particular country to come to a specialist center. We run a series of programs called preceptorships, and that means that we invite a doctor or technical person from one particular country where he's in the process of setting up the equipment to a specialist center where he learns details of setup.
So in the case of Tanzania, then isn't it true that such a personnel can be provided if Professor Tariq Mughal here or Dr. Marina Lois Chelekela from the Ministry of Health, or Muhimbili Nation Hospital, where these units are applying, then
there is already one who is scheduled to start this course. Actually.
Excellent. Now let's go back to the conference. Looking at the time, we are running short of time. Day 2 was dedicated to interactive sessions with patients.
Yes.
What on that?
That was a wonderful, wonderful session. We had patients from Tanzania with their family members. We not only brought physicians from Africa, but also patient leaders, CML survivors from 11 countries in Africa, who have formed. One of the things the Max Foundation has been doing is working with patients to form local organizations to support CML patients in their country. So there's small CML patient organizations in these 11 countries in Africa. So we brought them here to get together and form the first African network of CML patient organizations.
How did that work?
How did it work, the meeting? It was a wonderful event. They came out with this declaration that they declared that they formed this network and that will work together to strengthen CML patient organizations, because this is the voice of the patients. There's nothing like a person that can tell you their story. And we had very touching testimonials. We had a testimonial of a lady patient from Tanzania who gave a very long testimonial in Swahili. So we could really not understand what she was saying, but we knew what she was saying.
Absolutely.
She was very passionate. And so without understanding the words, we knew how she felt about what she was saying.
I understand that my 1 hour allocated to me is over. However, I can still, I think, a couple of minutes. Few seconds. How would you like to conclude this program and the conference?
I would like to, first of all, thank you so much for having us. It's wonderful to be able to talk about this very important initiative. We're very proud that we're working together. I think this is a great example, the CML example. It's great to show that companies, nonprofits, doctors, patients can all work together for the benefit of people living with a disease. And I want to commit that next year we will be back and we will be here and we will tell you that the diagnostic problem is being solved in Tanzania.
Yeah. I've already booked the time for you. Just let Twalib know and I will know. Yes, Tariq sir.
And I just wanted to emphasize that this colloquium also accorded us the opportunity to introduce a new book, which is the CML handbook, directed towards all the healthcare professionals, and we were able to launch it during this colloquium.
How can I get a copy, sir?
You can also get a copy. It can be downloaded, and it's of course free of charge.
Download which website should I go to access it?
Yeah. So at the present time, it's on the publisher's website, which is www.indiacancernetwork.com. But from about a week from now, you should be able to get it on the Max Foundation,
which is
also
www.themaxfoundation.org. Thank you.
Twalib?
The health professionals were very, very pleased. They told me that they enjoyed the sessions. And specifically, they said they have never seen such good presentations like the ones that John Goldman made. And the free-flowing discussions about the challenges. The ones from Tanzania, on hearing the challenges from other African countries and knowing that we are similar challenges, in a way thought that we have to try to do our best, but probably the environment is similar across the continent.
Thank you, sir. John?
I just agree with what I've just heard. The various organizations, international, the Max Foundation, the Alpine Oncology, Dr. Nkoma's point of view, and our own, I regard the conference as having been a remarkable success, and very importantly, it could be the first in a series of repeated events that just generally improve the standard of healthcare, not only in Tanzania, but in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, in the field of leukemia and beyond.
Yeah.
As a first step, this is exactly how things successfully continue.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And I will let you know from what Peter said, the next step will be to hold the same conference here in Dar es Salaam. I do thank you all very much indeed for spending the time educating us. Patricia Garcia Gonzalez, Tariq Mughal, Professor Twalim Goma, and Professor John Goldman. And you viewers, I do thank you indeed for having spent the last 1 hour on this scientific program, but in a simple language. I'm sure you all understood it. If I could, I'm sure you also did. However, I do invite you again next week at the same time, if you can, to join us. So until then, God bless you all.